Phillip Island. Nestled in a secluded corner of the Bass Strait, which separates Victoria and Tasmania, there's a hub of wildlife activity. Marine life, terrestrial animals, and birds of prey coexist here. It is home to two of the largest agglomerations of little penguins and fur seals, and a ground zero for the reintroduction of locally extinct animals. I'm Danielle Dufault, and these are the strange creatures of Phillip Island. We're driving into Phillip Island now. The coastline is stunning, and the wildlife is abundant. We know we're going to see penguins and seals, but we're also excited to see all the other wildlife of this Bass Strait. We made a quick stop at Kitty Miller Bay to see what we could find. Rock pools are home to several species of crustaceans as well as shorebirds. Okay, so I went and did the thing, but I just chose the smallest one that I could among all these rocks and decided to take a little peek what's underneath. As soon as I flipped that, about 3 little crabs went skittering off and a bunch of different kinds of mollusks that I haven't seen before, so that was pretty cool. There's a lot of life going on here, and you just need to look in the wettest, darkest places where they feel most safe. But in Phillip Island, if you stick around long enough, you're bound to run into an iconic creature. I just saw the infamous bin chicken, my first bin chicken, and I'm very thrilled. This wetland wading bird, officially known as the Australian white ibis, was rare in the large cities of Australia for most of the 20th century. But since the 1970s, their urban population has exploded. These formerly shy birds suddenly lost their fear of people and started breeding in the treetops of Sydney. They were likely influenced by a flock from the local zoo, which were used to humans. From there, they spread throughout all the coastal cities in the country. They've gotten a lot of flack here in Australia because they're very creative in terms of stealing our scraps. So they'll dive into dumpsters and open up garbage bins and have a feast. And a lot of people don't like them for that. Their relatives, the glossy ibis and the straw-necked ibis, are still beloved species in the country, while the white ibis continues to be hated for its bin raiding sprees. I guess they're kind of like giant seagulls or pigeons, the way that we see them in North America. They call them bin chickens, and I think I love them. Back on the road, it didn't take long until we ran into one of Australia's weirdest animals, the echidna. This little fellow we see behind me is an echidna. We saw it just driving by alongside the road here. I thought we would try and scoot it off, relocate it a little bit. So we managed to scare it off of the road and just off into the edge. He seems to be just nestled in there, doesn't seem to mind too much that we're there. They've got some of the strangest morphology among mammals. Not just a standard mammal, these guys are monotremes, and what that means is that they lay eggs. Their eggs are leathery and soft. They take care of those until they hatch, at which point they do still feed on milk, and they have a milk patch as opposed to nipples. So the babies will lap up against the milk patch on their abdomen and drink the milk that way. Wonderful creatures. I'm naming this one Knuckles, for obvious reasons. We're going to leave this little spiky guy alone and meet with the leading expert on all things fur seal before our trek to the colony.
So my name's Dr. Rebecca McIntosh, and I'm a marine scientist with Phillip Island Nature Parks.
Rebecca is in charge of ensuring the local fur seal population is healthy. Keeping track of so many marine mammals requires an incredible amount of work.
So this is Seal Rocks at the back here, and it's a colony of about 30,000 animals using it, and about 4,000 pups are born there every season, and they're born about mid-December. They're getting in the water about now because they're starting to molt their coats and get their juvenile coat on, which means they can go foraging.
This rocky island, known as Seal Rock, is the largest congregation site of the local fur seal population. But there are thousands of seals Rebecca has to keep an eye on.
The whole population's about 80,000 or so seals, and they can move quite long distances, about 200 kilometres, and come back and feed their pups, and the males can go even further because they don't need to come back to feed their pups.
Over the past decade, technological advances have made it easier to monitor the population and ecology of the colony.
So we've used, recently brought on drone technology, because what that means is that we can fly above, and we call it looking without landing, because we can look down and see what's happening and observe all their natural behaviour and count them without having to disturb them. And every 2 months we go out to Seal Rocks to get various research samples, but one of the things we do is rescue and release the animals that have entanglements. Give them another chance at life, basically.
These entanglements are usually discarded fishing equipment.
So with the trawl net entanglements around their necks, we've got a program running in partnership with the commercial industry where we're trying to capture those net fragments before they enter the ocean.
So you're literally a seal hero.
I have a superhero outfit designed in my head, but I you know, with like a red glitter wetsuit and stuff, but I haven't had it made yet.
Keeping the discarded equipment out of the water saves hundreds of seal lives every day.
We've been doing this since 1997, so it's a long time, and we've had a wonderful snapshot of how the ecosystem out here has changed.
After over 20 years of research, it's still fun to go out and study the seals.
I think one of my favourite things with working with the seals is all their individuality. The longer you spend working on something, the more you watch it, the more you appreciate its behaviour and how they're all different out there. They're all different seals. And the more I spend, the more I love it. So it's really just a matter of respect, I think, and appreciation of the natural world.
Having a deeper understanding of the seal population at Phillip Island, it was time to go out and see them for myself. We're heading out to the pier now on Phillip Island to join a boat on a little tour out to Seal Rock. Seal Rock has a resident population of Australian fur seals. This colony in particular is pretty gigantic. There are 9 species of fur seals within the Arctocephalinae subfamily, and they're actually more closely related to sea lions than true seals. Unlike true seals, fur seals have ears, and with 4 limbs are quite agile on land. They're found around the world, and a few of those species call the shores of Australia home, including the Australian fur seal and the long-nosed or New Zealand fur seal. Usually located on rocky islands and outcroppings, these colonies may not look appealing, but to fur seals, it's their temptation island. Welcome to Seal Rock. You hear it and you smell it before you see it. It's hard to describe the smell of a fur seal colony, though I guess it smells like what it is: rotting fish and seal poo. For something that looks like a cute sea doggo, they have one hell of an unappealing smell. Spending much of their lives at sea, males come to shore to establish these massive colonies, and they fight each other for the best mating spots. Females will also fight other females once they've mated for access to the best areas to give birth. Female fur seals will give birth to a single pup in the summer. One incredibly cool thing that fur seals can do is that they can control when their embryo starts to develop. through a process called delayed implantation, which means that they can delay embryo development. They do this to ensure their pups are born in the summer, when temperatures are warm and food is plentiful. The mothers do all the parenting and spend their days hunting for food. The pups stay behind and play with the other pups in the neighborhood. There's some babies playing out over there. Little fur seal pups. The pups are actually born black, and in the late spring, they molt and turn a lighter brownish gray.
So cute. It's going like this. I do that too.
Pups plunge into the water for the first time at 6 months of age. And by 11 months, they're independent, though they'll still stick close to mom for moral support. So fur seals really do live up to their name because they're intensely furry. Fur seals have 2 thick layers of fur to keep them warm in cold waters, unlike many other species which only have 1. The top layer repels water, and the underfur keeps their bodies toasty in the cold waters they call home. It also makes them much better swimmers because they become more hydrodynamic. Not only do these colonies smell horrible, but they're also incredibly loud. The whole island is a cacophony of females yelling at their kids and males yelling at each other. Each voice is unique to the seal and identifiable by other seals. A useful skill in what can only be described as a big ol' pile of seals. Unlike true seals, which look like pigs in a blanket on land, fur seals have strong limbs and can top around 15 kilometers an hour running. While they are fairly adept on land, underwater is where they thrive. Fur seals are purpose-built swimmers. They look fluid and can turn on a dime to evade a predator or pursue prey. They can hold their breath for up to 15 minutes, diving up to 380 meters on a single breath, all while hunting and eating. They are one with the ocean. While they do eat squid and octopus, the vast majority of their diet is made up of fish. These fish, sensing predators in the area, have formed what's called a bait ball. The fish swim together in a large ball, and since there's so many fish, each fish is banking on the predator getting full before catching them. A survival strategy for the fish is a buffet for the fur seals. The seals dive through the bait ball, mouth wide open, scooping up as much as possible. But the fur seals aren't the only ones that have shown up to the party. We've got a bait ball that we're chasing, and we're not the only ones here. The bait ball has drawn all kinds of predators. Terns, gannets, and an albatross attack it from above. While below the surface, a school of dolphins is converging on the bait ball. It's a sight to behold. It's crazy. But the fur seals have to be quick. They aren't the biggest predators on the scene anymore. Sharks are the fur seals' biggest predators, and a great white shark is a particularly adept foe. Fur seals are much more agile than great whites, and they can outmaneuver the sharks with ease. If need be, they'll jump out of the water to avoid a bite and confuse their pursuers. They also use their numbers to their advantage, as the predators are less likely to target a group. But this seal has gotten separated from its friends. Disoriented by the commotion, he makes an easy target for the great white. But fur seals aren't usually such easy meals. Male Australian fur seals can measure over 2 meters in length and weigh up to 280 kilograms. They have large canines that they use to rip and tear into their prey. They also have the cutest little ears, just little fleshy tubes with fur. True seals don't have that either. While charging through bait balls is an easy way for them to fish, they spend a lot of their time hunting in kelp forests. And they have a familiar adaptation that helps them thrive in these underwater mazes. Their whiskers. Fur seals have incredibly sensitive whiskers. They're up to 14 times more sensitive than a cat's whiskers. They use their whiskers for following the vibrations and currents created by fish, noting all the subtle little changes in the water, allowing them to pinpoint the fish's location with ease. Kelp forests are prime fishing territory. These giant underwater forests can grow upwards of 40 meters from the seafloor and are home to a diverse ecosystem filled with a vast array of fish and crustaceans. They offer refuge from the crushing currents of the ocean, providing many species with fertile breeding grounds. Unfortunately, this important ecosystem is disappearing around the world. Well, I don't enjoy being the bearer of bad news, but it's worth mentioning how climate change is affecting these fur seals. It's actually a very observable thing. As sea temperatures continue to rise, kelp forests across the globe are vanishing. During recent marine heat waves, the waters in the Tasman Sea have been 3 degrees Celsius hotter than they were just 25 years ago. Kelp don't have root systems, and they rely on the nutrients in the water to survive. And warm water carries less nutrients than colder water. And so, during these heat waves, the kelp don't absorb enough nutrients to survive. The problem is exacerbated by warm waters bringing invasive species with them that quickly take over these habitats. In the absence of the kelp forests, the ocean floor, once rich with biodiversity in these areas, now resembles a wasteland, devoid of life. For the fur seal, it means going out farther to find food, or not returning with enough to feed their pups. And for us, it's a sign of things to come. This is what makes the work done here at Phillip Island so important. Monitoring keystone species gives researchers information about the entire ecosystem and helps in their conservation efforts. Fur seals aren't the only species scientists and tourists are here to see. There's also the penguin of the hills, the blue penguin. They almost disappeared from the region, but thanks to conservation scientists, they're making a comeback. In order to help the little penguins recolonize Phillip Island, which used to be their home, the researchers have set up these boxes as you see behind me. And these little wooden refuges are perfect stand-ins for the burrows that they would build naturally. Then, they're closely monitored by a team of researchers, like Ranger Paula Wasiak, who's in charge of patrolling the colony and checking on the nests. She IDs every penguin in the colony with a microchip scanner.
Here in this study site, all of the penguins have got microchips between their shoulder blades, and this is just a way that we can get their details in a hands-off sort of way. So previously we'd have to take the birds out and handle them. So this way, I don't need to touch them and I get to know who's in, who their partner is when they're breeding. Right now I get to know what stage of the molt they're in.
The goal is to be as hands-off as possible.
Ideally what you can actually do is, if this works, get the scan from the outside or without having to lift that lid at all. That's how this should work. But if they're in a funny position, you might not. There we go, through the front door. So I've got that scan of the second bird now, the microchip number up there. So they'll all have their unique microchip numbers.
Chicks require extra handling, as they're weighed and measured to make sure they're being fed and getting their waterproof feathers on schedule.
We've got one chicken here that's about 6 weeks old. You can see it's getting its nice blue feathers. And it's been fed last night. I can feel its belly's full of fish that was fed last night, so at least one of the parents came home.
All this data is analyzed by a team of scientists at Phillip Island Nature Park, including a resident penguin tracker.
My name is Andrea Charaja. I'm a marine scientist here. I work mainly on penguins. The best title I like is I chase penguins for a living.
It's scientists like him that have helped Phillip Island turn from a penguin nightmare to a penguin haven.
30 years ago, it was a holiday destination. But with that, we have people driving through the night. Penguins, they see no boundaries, so they cross the road and people run over by cars on the road. So there was a high mortality on the road, and the government of the time decided to give that land back to the penguins. And then they set up these buyback schemes to buy all the houses back to the people. People say, oh, you put too much effort on the penguins, but it's not that. It's by protecting the penguins, you protect everything, other species that live in this habitat.
Since the eradication of the red fox from the island, little penguins have had no land predators. And, maybe surprisingly, predation in the water is rare. Their main challenge now is food availability.
Climate change has the ability to move prey away from the traditional feeding grounds. So penguins have to travel longer and work harder to find food. It's not the food is disappearing, the food is just moves.
And yet, despite those massive challenges, penguins are thriving here.
So I need to ask, what is your favorite thing about these penguins?
My favorite thing is how those animals, they're so resilient. In particular, when I start looking at penguins at sea, when they go diving, because we put all those little gadgets on the back of the penguins. It's like a Fitbit.
The tracker is attached to the back of the penguins, in a spot where it doesn't hinder their swimming or walking.
And those Fitbits, you can reconstruct their life at sea. You know how deep they dive, how often they dive, how far away they go, because we have a GPS inside as well. It's quite a cool little gadget. And when you come back, all the information is stored inside the unit. And then you download it, then you reconstruct the trip. And then you think, wow, the animal that size, making 2,000 to 2,500 dives a day and go to, 30 to 70 meters. That's amazing.
But now it's time to leave the chicks alone and go and see one of the greatest shows on the surf. The Penguin Parade. Also known as fairy penguins or blue penguins, the little penguins are aptly named, as they are the smallest species of penguin in the world. While their larger Antarctic relatives can tower in at over a meter, the little penguins only ever reach about 33 centimeters tall, a bit longer than an American football. Again, unlike their cold weather cousins, little penguins can only be found along the shores of southern Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand, preferring the more temperate climates to the sub-zero freeze. The reason for their limited stature is precisely because of their locale. As a general rule, the farther south you go, the fatter the penguins get. This is because they need a lot of fat to insulate themselves from the harsh colds, but further north, where it's much warmer, the penguins are free to lay off the sardines. In this more balmy climate, little penguins are able to dig and live in burrows dotting the hillsides along the shore. So this cliff behind me, leading down to the ocean, is completely lined with little penguin burrows. Even the grasslands around here are pockmarked with these little dens that are actually supported and reinforced by the low-lying shrubs and bushes and their root systems. Helps keep them sturdy and prevents them from collapsing. And they form these really interesting relationships with the vegetation around here because by pooping in their dens, they're actually providing fertilizer for the plants that are growing around it and solidifying their little dens. If you look closely, you might be able to spot a little penguin in its burrow during the day. But these penguins are night owls. In fact, little penguins are the only truly nocturnal penguin on land. So every night, the little penguins haul themselves out of the ocean and walk up to 2 kilometers to get home. It's quite a sight to behold. So I've been waiting patiently and rather eagerly to experience something very, very special here on Phillip Island. Here is the biggest colony of little penguins. We've been waiting for them to make their great exodus from the ocean and back up onto land at night. They've been out hunting for fish and gorging their bellies all day, and they're just starting to come out. I gotta show you this. The little penguins spend most of their lives at sea, and tonight, many are returning to land in order to molt. This is the most dangerous time for a little penguin. At sea, their blue feathers camouflage them from predators from above, like eagles, and their white underbellies camouflage them from predators from below, like fur seals. But when they come to shore, they are highly vulnerable. And so, they wait until they have the cover of darkness, and then they make their way in big groups. They form what's called rafts out in the surf, just on the edge of the beach. Once they've all congregated and it's gotten just dark enough, they'll start moving onto land in these little groups. They let the tide carry them in. The first to arrive will hang around and wait for the rest of the group before marching up the beach. This group of 4 decides to make a break for it, but the ocean bowls them over like pins in an alley. But they recover and complete their mad dash across the beach. This penguin has decided to go the trek alone. A dangerous move, but he seems rather pleased with himself. Another 2 penguins show up. Not as courageous as their friend, they wait for backup. Finally, enough of their friends have arrived that these 2 early birds feel safe enough to make a break for it. With an eagle in the area, they must remain vigilant, though perhaps not enough, as the ocean knocks a few of them down. They pick up speed, racing for the cover of the rocks where their slick, dark blue feathers will help them blend in once again. Oh, they're starting to run. Oh, there they go. Home's calling. Better get home. A bigger group has arrived. But it's not long before they too are knocked back by a powerful wave. They shake it off and begin to cautiously waddle up the beach. They keep low to the ground, in part to avoid detection, but also because of their biology. Their knees are fused, so when they walk, all they have to do is lean forward. This helps them save energy. They don't need to expend effort bending muscles in their knees back and forth. They just fall forward, left and right, onto their stilt-like legs and are carried up the beach. But one of the penguins has gotten separated from the group, and with a white-bellied sea eagle circling above, he had better make it to the rocks. Exhausted as he reaches cover, this youngster can only muster the energy to throw himself from rock to rock. He's recouped enough energy and makes it back to his friends, safe from the clutches of the eagle for another night. part of the reason they're so hefty is that this is the time of year they molt. Spending 80% of their lives at sea, little penguins have highly effective feathers. They are waterproof and highly dense, with about 12 feathers per square centimeter and around 10,000 total. They interlock and trap little bubbles that keep the penguin warm and buoyant. But they're not good forever, and once a year, the little penguins will replace all of their feathers in what's called a molt. This process takes between 2 and 3 weeks. When they're on land and they're molting their feathers, they lose their waterproof coat, so they can't go out and swim and catch their fish. And so, in preparation for a few weeks without a meal, they have to put on a lot of weight. They will feast as much as they can in order to become 250% of their original weight. So they go from 1 kilogram to 2.5 kilograms. Can you imagine that? Like, I don't think that's physically possible for us. But, oh wow, some of these are some pretty gigantic waddlers. This is no March of the Penguins. This is the waddle of the penguins. Since they're so much fatter than they're used to, when they're on their waddle home, they'll often take a few steps and then flop down on their bellies to rest a bit. This is me trying to come home after all-you-can-eat sushi. I can relate to this. This is the largest colony of little penguins in the world, with 30,000 calling Phillip Island home. They don't all come home every night, but on a busy night, as many as 2,000 will return over the course of a couple hours. Once they've made it to shore, they head for their burrows. These burrows are their family homes and often are passed down through the generations. The males are the main excavators, but all little penguins come equipped with sharp claws on their feet to help them dig. Little penguins breed once a year and don't mate for life, though they will stick with their partner until the chicks are ready to go out on their own. If they're successful in having kids, there's about an 80% chance that they'll mate again the following year. The little penguin lays 2 eggs per clutch. They're also the only species of penguin known to be able to lay more than 1 clutch, up to 6 if the conditions are right. The eggs hatch after 35 days, and the parents take turns caring for the chicks for 4 weeks before they're old enough to be left alone while both parents go out to forage. Adult little penguins are built for a life at sea. To see underwater, they have a nictitating membrane. This is a semi-translucent eyelid, which protects their eyes but allows them to open them when they're diving. On the hunt for fish, squid, and jellies, they can dive over 1,000 times a day. Every day, they need to eat 1/4 of their body weight in order to survive, and then they head back to shore to feed their chicks. Little penguin colonies are massive, and when everyone's in a tux, it can be hard to find your family. In order to locate their burrows, they listen for their partner's specific call. Thousands of penguins calling for one another makes it a very loud family reunion. They're currently being pretty quiet, but from what I understand, this species can make up to 12 different kinds of vocalizations, whereas most birds, on average, about 6 different types of sounds. I think we're starting to hear a couple of different like croaks and clucks and squawks. Penguins are predated upon by fur seals, eagles, snakes, and goannas, but they've increasingly faced threats from invasive species like foxes, feral cats, and of course, humans. Thankfully, Phillip Island, here in Victoria, has been turned into a massive penguin sanctuary, and the population of foxes and feral cats on the island have largely been eradicated, along with domestic dogs being banned from the island. And now, with new technologies, researchers are able to track the little penguins' movement and track their success in breeding in order to better understand the lives and livelihoods of the cutest little penguins in the world. In the grasses overlooking the knobbies, there's an ever-present lurker. It's the Cape Barren goose. This massive bird can weigh up to 7 kilograms and have a wingspan of over 180 centimeters. Cape Barren geese are odd ducks in the goose world. Their beaks are short, waxy, and very efficient at cutting off grass, which is the main dish of their diet. Phillip Island and other grassy isles of the Bass Strait provide them with plenty of food and safe haven from predators. Their name comes from one of these islands, Cape Barren, where they were first seen by Europeans. As the name suggests, these areas are tough environments to thrive in, but the Cape Barren goose has a unique adaptation that helps them survive here during the breeding season. They can drink salt water, and it becomes a vital option during the nesting season. Few predators dare venture into their dry nesting grounds. Of course, Cape Barren geese prefer fresh water, and after their goslings fledge, they'll come to areas with plenty of food and delicious fresh water. Nighttime brings out curious creatures to the streets of Phillip Island. Brushtail possums are omnivores and have adapted well to city life. They eat leaves and the occasional small animal, but have also learned to eat people's garden veggies. They even go dumpster diving every once in a while. Because of this, they have become Australia's most commonly seen marsupial. They come in several shades of brown, including the amazing golden form, which is the closest we have to a real-life Pikachu. Like all marsupials, brushtail possums carry their babies in their pouch for the first few months of their life. But even when they're big enough, the parents continue to carry them on their back until they're old enough to fend for themselves. Unfortunately, due to their voracious appetite, they have become a pest in some areas, including New Zealand, where they're considered a dangerous invasive species, partly due to the lack of predators. Though Phillip Island is not devoid of predators. Lurking in the shadows is an adorable hunter you might have heard of but never seen, the Bandicoot. Despite its limited stature, its reach is huge, as it's crashed its way into playing the eponymous role in the Crash Bandicoot video games. Found across mainland Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea, there are around 20 species of bandicoots, and they thrive in all sorts of terrain, from the outback to rainforests to woodlands and swamps. Bandicoots range in size from the tiny, the golden bandicoot, which weighs just 300 grams, to the relatively large, the northern brown bandicoot, which weighs the same as 10 of their smaller cousins. But tonight, we're looking for one of the rarest, Crash's origins, the eastern barred bandicoot. And I bet you wouldn't recognize him when you saw him.
Guys, today just gets better and better. Right next to me, you definitely can't see it from over here. Or maybe you can? I'll try. But got my buddy Crash Bandicoot behind me. Actually, that's an eastern barred bandicoot.
The eastern barred bandicoot belongs to the long-nosed branch of the bandicoot family and are distinguished by the cute little stripes on their butts.
Got a really distinctive barred coat, and that's why they're called the eastern barred.
The other half of the true bandicoot family are the short-nosed bandicoots, which, as their name suggests, have short snouts. Outside the family of true bandicoots, the Paramelidae family, there are a few species commonly referred to as bandicoots, despite belonging to different families. Included are the rabbit-eared bandicoots, or bilbies. These are distinct from true bandicoots in that they have large, rabbit-like ears, long hind legs, bushy tails, and a particular resistance to powerful rings. But the weirdest-looking bandicoot which isn't a bandicoot is the pig-footed bandicoot. These cuties had very long legs, along with hoof-like feet, and they reportedly would gallop around like a horse. Unfortunately, they are likely extinct, as the last sighting was in the 1920s. Both of these species split from the true bandicoots in the late Oligocene or early Miocene, and in 2014, a new genus was described, titled simply Crash, or Crash Bandicoot. This cheekily named, newly discovered fossil species is one of the earliest found relatives of the modern bandicoots, after they split from bilbies and their pig-footed cousins. Bandicoots are nocturnal predators, and tonight, this eastern barred male is on the prowl. With their long noses, they excel at digging up worms. They use their small front legs to dig perfectly snout-sized holes. Their snouts are aligned with highly sensitive nerves, which help them detect the movement of prey underground. They are omnivorous and will eat anything they can get their snouts around.
Oh, he's eating garbage.
Including crickets, roots, and if they're desperate, scorpions. While real bandicoots don't spend their time collecting wumba fruit, one thing the game did get right is their weird run. He really just needs a pair of jeans and running shoes, and he's off to fight the Komodo bros. The reason for their wonky run is their long hind legs. They resemble a kangaroo's, and they allow them to escape predators quickly. Bandicoots are solitary species, only ever meeting up to mate. Living up to 3 years in the wild, they have proportionately short pregnancies, at just 12 days. This is one of the shortest pregnancies in the animal world. Though not all bandicoots are lucky enough to make it to old age. Due to their small size, they make easy prey for predators like dingoes and eagles. Though more recently, they've had the misfortune of being preyed upon by invasive species like dogs, feral cats, and foxes.
Until a couple years ago, these guys were considered extinct in the wild.
Once found extensively across southern Australia, eastern barred bandicoots have been driven to extinction on the mainland, and until recently could only be found in Tasmania, where there are fewer foxes. On the mainland, they only had a few individuals left in zoos, at which point they decided to try a conservation effort here on Phillip Island.
In the past 5 years, they've gone from less than 100 to about 300 individuals. So I'm seeing one of so few of these animals. It's an absolute joy to see such a remarkable mammal and so representative of Australia. And I get to see one with my very own eyes. It's unbelievable. I don't even have words for this.
The Phillip Island Conservation Project was primarily focused on increasing the little penguin populations, but their banning of dogs, outdoor cats, and eradication of foxes has inadvertently led to a boom for many species, including the eastern barred bandicoot.
Getting to see an eastern barred bandicoot is really testament to just how incredible the conservation efforts here have been. All of the programs here have led to rises in populations of animals that have been struggling for a long time, due to us, of course. You know, it goes to show everyone here really does care about the wildlife. I've seen so many examples of that just here today.
As reintroduction programs gain traction and efforts to eradicate invasive species succeed, hopefully we'll see a return of the coolest, denim-clad, polar bear-riding marsupial to the mainland. Just 15 minutes away from the Nobbies is home to the cutest tree-dwelling marsupial teddy bear, the koala.
So just behind me here on this boardwalk, there's a koala who's munching down on his favorite food. Of course, his favorite stuff is eucalyptus leaves. They can eat up to 500 grams of this stuff every single day. But it doesn't give them much energy, so they're not very excited creatures. The only things that really get them riled up is trying to defend their territories from other males, and of course mating.
Eucalyptus leaves are very thick and leathery, so koalas have evolved tools to make the most out of their meals.
Koalas, like the one behind me, I don't know if you can see it, it's right there, munching on some eucalyptus leaves. They have some very specialized dentition that helps them process the food that they go for. So their front teeth are actually really quite sharp and designed for slicing and pulling off those leaves. And then after that, they push them to the back of their mouths where they have big powerful molars for grinding that down.
But besides making them lazy, being eucalyptus specialists has its pros. Most of them come from the eucalyptus toxins and foul taste.
They don't have many predators due to what they taste like. They're pretty much the only animal that does feed on eucalyptus, which is considered to be poisonous for just about every other animal except for these guys. They end up taking a lot of those toxins into their own tissues and end up tasting pretty terrible.
So without a lot of danger to fear, koalas have embraced the chill life. They're unbothered, moisturized, happy, focused, and flourishing.
I guess I never really expected to see so many koalas in one place, but I guess it makes sense when their food is everywhere around me. They seem like really happy koalas, and over on this boardwalk, the public can just walk up to them and take photos, and they're really not fazed at all. They seem to be pretty well respected and well protected in this area, and they can choose to be here. I think I would choose to be here. All this food, nothing to hunt me. It's a good life.
This sort of idyllic life doesn't happen in a vacuum. Decades of conservation efforts have helped turn Phillip Island into the ecotourism success story it is today.
You might be able to see from here, but this koala does have a little tag on its ear, because I'm sure that this area is highly conserved and monitored to check up on its wildlife. Phillip Island seems to be, bar none, one of the best places I've ever seen for conservation. They seem very much at peace with one another, and it's quite amazing to see. I think the rest of the world could learn to follow a lot of the models that are being used here on Phillip Island for the sake of conservation, for biological research, for public outreach, and getting people to care. And all of it that goes into it seems to come back around to the community, but also to all of the wildlife. So I'd say it's all a very win-win situation.
Phillip Island has done an incredible job with conservation efforts funded by ecotourism. All throughout the island, you can see the results of these projects. Healthy seal populations, growing penguin colonies, and even the return of an almost extinct predator. Hopefully, other natural sanctuaries can replicate their success and protect their ecosystems.